It's wild, right? It's the whole living your best life thing. Everyone's always talking about it. But then you look closer and it's like vacations, fancy cars, the whole nine yards. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy those things too. But I can't help but wonder, is that really all there is to it?
Right. It's like, is that really best life or just a really nice Tuesday?
Exactly. And it got me thinking, what does living your best life look like when you view it through a different lens, a faith-based lens? So I found this sermon, Live Your Best Jesus Life.
Catchy, right?
Definitely grabs your attention.
It totally does. And it doesn't waste any time diving into the heart of the matter. Right off the bat, it throws John 10:10 at you. The whole, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly verse.
Classic. But I'm guessing there's a twist coming, knowing this sermon title. Oh, there totally is, because the very next thing it does is connect that verse to this whole living your best life idea. Like it's purposely putting those two things side by side.
Interesting. So how does it bridge that gap? Because John 10:10 isn't exactly talking about beach vacations and sports cars.
Well, that's where things get really interesting. I'm curious, from a theological standpoint, what does abundant life actually mean in that context?
Yeah, it's definitely not about material wealth. It's about experiencing the fullness of life that comes from a deep, abiding relationship with Christ.
Okay, so it's less about what you have and more about how you're living.
Exactly. It's about aligning your heart, mind, and soul with God's purpose for you. It's about finding true joy, peace, and fulfillment that the world simply can't offer.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like the world tells you to chase after all these external things, but true fulfillment comes from something much deeper. And speaking of deeper, this sermon does not let up. It goes on to talk about God as our provider, even pulling in Philippians 4:19, the one about God supplying all our needs according to his riches and glory.
Oh, yeah. That's a powerful one. It speaks to the heart of God's faithfulness and love for us.
Right. But it wasn't just the words themselves that got me. It was the delivery. It was like this bold declaration, like victory is already ours.
That's the spirit. It's not about timidly hoping God might come through for us. It's about standing firm in the knowledge that he already has. Is that what you say?
100%. But what's the theological term for that? Like that unshakable trust in God's provision.
You're talking about God's providence. It's the belief that God is actively involved in every aspect of our lives, working all things together for our good.
Providence, I like that. It's like saying, God's got this.
Exactly. It's about releasing the need to control everything and trusting that God is in control.
It really makes you think, though, about how we usually approach this whole living our best life thing. Like, are we even factoring God into the equation?
It's so true. We get so caught up in our own plans, our own timelines, that we forget who's really calling the shots.
And that's where the worry and anxiety creep in, right?
Yeah.
Because suddenly it's all up to us.
Exactly. And that's the opposite of what this sermon is getting at. It actually dives right into that whole worry thing, in fact.
It really does. It's like the writer knew exactly what we'd be thinking. There's this whole section that's practically quoting Matthew 6.2534, word for word.
The one where Jesus talks about not worrying about food or clothes, about seeking first the kingdom of God.
That's it. And I don't know about you, but I needed that reminder. It's so easy to get caught up in the what ifs and the if onlys.
It's human nature, right? But this sermon challenges us to shift our perspective, to go from I have to figure it all out to God's got this.
There's so much freedom in that, though. Like, it doesn't mean our problems magically disappear, but it does mean we don't have to carry the weight of them alone.
It's like treating in a spirit of anxiety for a spirit of peace. Because when we trust in God's provision, we can finally exhale and say, okay, maybe I don't have all the answers, but I know the one who does.
And that changes everything, doesn't it? It's like, okay, maybe my life isn't perfect, but I'm still deeply loved and cared for by the God of the universe.
And that's a truth worth clinging to. No matter what life throws our way, it's the foundation of true peace and security, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And you know what's interesting? The sermon doesn't stop there. It goes on to talk about heaven, about how this life is just a blip on the radar of eternity.
Yes. It brings in that eternal perspective, which I think is crucial to this whole conversation about living our best life.
Because it's like if this life is all there is, then yeah, we have every right to be stressed out and anxious about getting it all right. But if this isn't the end of the story, that changes everything.
Right. Suddenly, the pressure to achieve it all here and now starts to fade, and we're free to focus on what truly matters. Our relationship with God, loving others, and making a difference in the world, all while anticipating the incredible adventure that awaits us beyond this life.
It reminds me of that C.S. Lewis quote, something like, If we find ourselves with a desire that nothing in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that we were made for another world.
Exactly. It's like this deep-seated longing for something more, something beyond what this world can offer. And that's what this sermon points to, wouldn't you say? That true fulfillment, true best life, isn't found in accumulating earthly treasures, but in pursuing a relationship with the one who created us for so much more.
It's about aligning our definition of best with his definition, which is, let's be honest, infinitely better than anything we could come up with on our own.
And that's the heart of it. Really, it's about surrendering our will for his, trusting that he knows the desires of our hearts better than we do.
And it all boils down to one essential ingredient: faith. Because without it, it's all just nice-sounding theory, right?
100%. It's faith that unlocks the power of everything we've been talking about. It's the key that unlocks the door to the abundant life Jesus promised.
And that's a life worth fighting for, wouldn't you say?
Every single day.
It feels like, and maybe this is too simplistic a way to put it, but it feels like this sermon is saying, forget about just trying to create an Instagram-worthy life and focus on something way deeper.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's like so much of the live your best life messaging out there is about external validation, you know? But this sermon flips the script and says, hey, your worth, your value comes from something so much deeper than that.
It's about who you are, not what you have.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that you are a beloved child of God, created with a unique purpose and overflowing with potential. And that's a truth that no filter can capture or hashtag can convey.
This whole deep dive has been super insightful, but if there's one thing I hope listeners take away from this sermon, it's that true fulfillment isn't some elusive destination, it's a journey.
Yes, it's about showing up every day, open to God's guidance, and trusting that he's working all things together for your good.
It's about saying yes to the adventure, even when it gets messy, even when it's hard, because that's where the real growth happens, right?
Right. Absolutely, and
Yeah.
that's what makes the journey so worthwhile, because it's in those moments of surrender, those moments of choosing faith over fear, that we discover the true meaning of living our best life.
It's not about the absence of storms. It's about learning to dance in the rain, knowing that God is with us every step of the way. And I think that's a pretty amazing way to live, wouldn't you say?
The absolute best.
So, to everyone listening, here's your challenge. The next time you hear that phrase, living your best life, don't let your mind go straight to the picture-perfect Instagram feed. Instead, let it draw you back to the one who created you, the one who knows the desires of your heart better than you do, the one who longs to lead you into a life of true abundance, purpose, and unshakable joy. Keep seeking, keep growing, and keep diving deep into the truth that sets your soul on fire. Until next time.